Good morning. It is 10 a.m. on Thursday, March 13th, and I am going to call to order this meeting of the Public Safety and Justice Committee. Let's begin with a roll call.
Vice Chairperson Lee.
Oh,
Sure. Aye.
And
Present.
Chairperson Ellenberg.
I am here as well.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
All right, give me just a second here. All right. Before we begin with our agenda, I want to welcome the former Reentry Network members to PSJC today, and thank you all for joining us for this morning's study session on late-night jail releases. So just a quick order of operations for the day. Supervisor Lee and I will work through the regular agenda items, which are 1 through 8. And following that, we will move on to the study session. When we reach that point in the meeting, I will welcome our former REN members to join us either on the dais or at the seats here. We have name tags for you with the clerk. And for everyone's information, when the Reentry Network was dissolved at the end of last year, Supervisor Lee and I brought forward a referral to integrate REN's work into PSJC and to establish these study sessions to preserve the invaluable insights and experience provided by REN members. So I'm really looking forward to that later on the agenda today. And of course, throughout any of the agenda items, REN members, along with the rest of the public, are very warmly invited to make comments on any of our items. And speaking of that, we will go next to public comment. This is the portion of the agenda set aside for members of the public wishing to address the committee members on matters within the scope of public safety and justice, but not on today's agenda. Do we have any speakers, Nancy?
We have 2 speakers on Zoom.
All right, let me just make a last call before I close the queue. I see no one coming down here, and if we're holding at 2, let's close and offer each speaker 3 minutes, please.
Okay. First speaker is Anne Marie McCauley. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Prop 36 is the blueprint for a mansion that police are expected to build with a hammer and a bag of nails. City officials and service providers are blaming each other because of the problems created with decriminalization, no housing to replace jails and prisons, and services that don't meet the needs of the population. The county elects need to communicate with local government leaders so they understand jail is closed and it's not coming back. This is a quote from today's agenda packet. In addition, Santa Clara County has aggressive jail.
Did something happen? We can't hear the speaker.
I feel that she's still connected. Who are required to remain in custody. There's a big disconnect from the passing of Prop 36, an unfunded mandate that cities think is going to solve their homeless problem once homelessness is criminalized. However, what I just read and have been watching for the past 2 years illustrates that the county and state want to empty jails as soon as possible and have no intention or budget to rebuild them. Now it makes the service providers look like they're failing because the state and county are releasing people with nowhere to go, and the local governments are considering homelessness a trespassing violation and are dealing with it as a crime issue and not a housing issue. This cycle of arrest and release is wasting time and money and creating divided communities. It's heartbreaking to see the smartest people in my city of Gilroy fighting and blaming each other because they aren't being told the facts by the county and the state. All of us here agree incarceration is not a solution and by far the most expensive form of subsidized housing that makes problems worse. We could hire a quality of life officer for every homeless person and a police officer for every criminal, and it would not solve our problems. Labor with no materials builds nothing. Gilroy Reentry needs real services. They need hotel vouchers for released citizens so they can get stabilized for a week after exit. They need transitional housing so all the service providers can actually help people get better. It would also help if it was mandatory to go through a post-release program, but it won't be effective without housing that accommodates each specific demographic. women, youth, families, etc. I greatly appreciate this committee and its focus. The creation of reentry is a great vehicle for reform. We just need to put some tires on it and get it moving in the right direction. Thank you.
The next speaker is iPhone. You have 3 minutes. You may begin speaking.
Yes, hello, good morning. I wanted to see if I could possibly get whoever the representative for the district attorney's office to provide a referral to the Child Advocacy Center for my children, because my kids are being sexually abused, and I can't get DFCS to provide one for my kids because there's a conflict of interest, and that a former judge and my old attorney, they want the sexual abuse to continue. And what the sexual abuse is that my son, he's already confirmed to me that beginning at the age of 13, my ex-wife was letting somebody rape him. There was sexual contact between 2 of the children. There was unnecessary bathing with the children. And there was also changes in personality of the children. And, they became withdrawn, anxious. They stopped having friends. I mean, it's clear that, the sexual abuse didn't just happen to my oldest son. And I know that the district attorney's office oversees the Child Advocacy Center. They have the ability and the authority to provide referrals, and I would greatly appreciate it, whoever here is in the district attorney's office, if you could please provide a referral for my kids. My name is Ben Z. Supervisor Lee, he has all my contact information should you need it. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for your help. Thank you.
That's our final speaker.
Thank you very much. We'll move now to the consent calendar. And Supervisor Lee, do you have any changes?
Yeah, I would like to suggest adding item 8 to the consent calendar. Through the chair, I also have one more request that we've had many constituents tell us that they continue to face challenges connecting with the jailed families due to some of the policy, procedural, and technological barriers. So while the technology improvements are promising, the broader access issue remains overlooked, and I would like to request that we schedule a regular updates on the PSJC's jail visitation technology area. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look into how we can add that to the work plan and follow up. Item 5, and I'm fine to add item 8 to the consent calendar. Item 5 is to receive a report from the Office of Pretrial Services relating to the strategic work plan implementation and operational efficiencies. I want to add this item 5 to the consent calendar. I want to thank Matt Fisk, Pretrial Services staff and administration, for some real creativity in addressing existing high caseloads within the current constraints while balancing the needs of your clients and maintaining performance standards, which I'm aware is not an easy feat. I look forward to future reports as the 9-part strategic plan is implemented. Item 13 is already on consent. I just want to make a brief comment, keeping it on consent. Here I want to thank Custody Health, Dr. Rosia Luna, the Sheriff's Office, Catholic Charities, and our commissary vendor for the really great work expanding access to free reading glasses for patients in custody. They provided 645 patients with free reading glasses just in January of this year, and that struck me as absolutely worth shining some light on. Additionally, item 14, which is on consent, that's through the report from the reentry services related to the center dashboards. Here, I would just like to direct staff to update the cadence of these reports from quarterly to biannually, twice a year. And that would be my motion to approve the consent calendar as changed.
Thank you. So we are moving item number 5 and number 8 to consent, right? And the rest will not be all the way to, we still have 9 actually on the regular agenda. So yes, I will I would support that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a delight. Do we have any public speakers on the consent calendar?
There are no requests to speak.
All right, let's vote, please.
Vice Chairperson Lee? And Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We're going to proceed with the regular agenda. Item 4 is to receive a report from the Office of the County Executive relating to custodial facilities. Welcome, Consuelo.
Good morning, Chair Ellenberg, Supervisor Lee, Consuelo Hernandez, Deputy County Executive. This morning, I have a brief update for you. If you recall, in January, we presented on the jail transformation process, which includes 4 components. Today, we only have an update on 2 of those components. One is related to the community engagement. The second is related to the technical assessment of our facilities, and I'll start with the second. I'm happy to report that we are in contract negotiations with one of the vendors that submitted an application or a proposal as part of our RFSOQ process. We expect to come to the full board on April 8th with a recommendation to approve an agreement. And we'll have more details about their timeline and the scope of work during that board meeting. The second is to share a slight change in our community engagement approach. If you might recall, we started at looking at a broader approach, which included the jail reform as a big category of work for community engagement. And like with many larger efforts, it just became too big, and we don't want to delay the work associated with looking at our facilities. And so what we're proposing is a 2-phased approach. The first one will focus on rebuilding trust with the community, making sure that there's transparency around what the assessment, the technical components of the assessment actually include. And then building off of that conclusion, we would then have a broader conversation around jail reform. So we're in the early stages of that work plan. In partnership with Dr. Luna and CCLEM, we're drafting up a work plan. Hope to have a draft by the end of the month for that first phase. And we'll be able to share more information with the board at the April 8th update, or the semi-annual report that goes to the board twice a year. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have or answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to look first to see if we have public speakers on this item, then I have comments.
There are no requests to speak.
Oh, okay. Supervisor Lee, do you have questions?
Can you hear me now? Good. Okay, good. First of all, yes, Consuelo, thank you very much for the report, and I do have some questions and concerns. As we know that the jail safety remains a critical concern, the current facilities, especially Main Jail North, as we talk about, has very outdated infrastructure and continues to compromise the well-being and safety for both our staff and those incarcerated. I'm worried that the reports we're receiving in some ways are at times redundant and repeating the same points without really offering the clear linear path forward on this efforts. And I think it's not helping us in terms of moving forward. And so while community engagement is absolutely important, and we've been doing it literally for what? This vote of constructing the replacement jail took place more than 2 years ago. I really do think that we need to have some other issues to run in parallel to make sure concrete steps are being formed. The CCLEM, our Community Monitoring Committee, has asked us repeatedly that we absolutely have to move more concrete and move faster. And one thing I've learned in my life is that when there's no deadlines, nothing really gets done. So, and this is what I would like to see if Supervisor Ellenberg would be interested to support, is that at the April 8th board meeting, I would like to get a report back to include some type of timeline for the development and what areas we can potentially expedite, because right now we don't really have a framework. And in that report, I would like to see if we can include a conversation we've had with some of the industry participant experts Yeah, the Z scale that keep popping up on my screen. Just IT hears about that. Lovely. And if we haven't had some of those conversations, I certainly would like to know when we will begin to have them so that we could continue to work with the folks who are in this business to learn what not to do and what to do to keep this moving. So if we really want to reform our jail, I think it's really important to learn from systems elsewhere. And I remember the district attorney, Rosen, has presented something about the way they do in Germany, for example, a few years ago. And as far as Ellenberg mentioned, something of some of the Norwegian takeaways that she saw. So I think there are many things that we could learn from other areas as well, and we really have to start taking steps toward those important thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Greta.
Thank you, Supervisor Lee. And I think if I'm understanding correctly, some of the observations you're making, I think staff really agrees with them. I think a challenge is we've sort of set up a really frequent reporting schedule. And so we're bringing back similar reports over and over again as we, for example, are in contract negotiations with the entity that will do this comprehensive and detailed facility assessment, telling us what basic investments we need to make to keep the jails safe and habitable, or get them safe and habitable in certain places, while also laying the foundation for opportunities to implement much more innovative models and programming and structure. And so with the support of the committee and the board, we're happy to bring forward reports to the board where we have real meaningful progress to describe. I think the point about the timeline that you made is an important one, and one of the opportunities that we have in the contract negotiation process is to really establish the timeline with the vendor we plan to use for the facility condition assessment. That will also include junctures where we can then report on their progress in assessing those facilities, both as part of the community engagement that we'll be doing, as well as to the committee and the board, so that you're apprised of the progress that's being made. And of course, if there are important opportunities to act without waiting as we're continuing to do that facility assessment, we'll take those. I would also just want to share, and the sheriff can offer more detail on this, but even in parallel with the efforts to assess the condition of the jail facilities, do real master planning for the future state that I think we're all hoping for at our facilities. He and his team are also looking at ways to pivot the way we're using the existing facilities that better align with, I think, a focus on rehabilitation, on increased safety, on improving staff supervision where it's needed, within the confines of incredibly challenging facilities to operate with the population they're currently serving relative to the population they were intended to serve, and how different that is. So to be concrete, I think we'll come back with a anticipated timeline on the facility condition assessment, more information on exactly how we will be doing community engagement in parallel, as Consuelo mentioned, really making sure the community understands the assessment that we're doing, how it flows to that broader reform vision, and also at the same time how we're engaging in parallel some of those best practices from around the country and around the world. The vendor that we're hoping to work with brings a lot of experience and expertise working with other jurisdictions. And I think there's pretty widespread interest and a lot of information on those international models available. So we look forward to including that in the future reports.
Sheriff Johnson.
Thank you. Actually, I just want to really share my enthusiasm for the supervisor's recommendation that we have some kind of idea of a time frame, because I, as the sheriff, I can't emphasize enough the urgency of moving forward on this facility, whatever it turns out to be. I mean, we, to COO's comments, I mean, we, the sheriff's office, are facing tremendous challenges in trying to provide the services that we feel, as I believe this body feels as well, in addition to the community, providing an environment for those that are incarcerated with everything that they need, the services they need, whether medical, the access to education and programs. And it's like moving, around a space that was not designed for any of that. And we are just not in a position to do what we want to do. So again, it would be very appreciative from the sheriff's standpoint is that from a strategic planning, that we knew exactly what we're looking at. Are we talking about, just getting through this community engagement model in the next 2 years? Preferably, it'd be great if we could have that behind us within the next 12 months so we can start moving forward and planning for what we need to do in the future. So I appreciate the supervisor's support on this. And again, I would, as a sheriff, would very much appreciate a timeline so we can start working around what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Lights are on. Do you have more?
Yeah,
Okay.
the sheriff's comments just reminded me of one thing that I neglected to add, and I think this is just important for the community to understand. A challenge that we face is we are way behind where I think all of us hope to be in terms of addressing the facility conditions. As the committee is certainly aware, and many members who've been following the conversation in the community are, we had this process that did not result, long process that did not result in construction that would now be completed on a new facility. So we have the challenge of feeling unbelievable urgency to get to the end point while also wanting to do real meaningful community engagement, real effective planning. Given the magnitude of the investment, we have to get the planning right. And we need to make sure that when we're engaging the community, we have actual proposals for that future state that we can put in front of them and get their input. So I just want to name some of those competing considerations that are really, I think, creating tension for all of us and feeling unbelievable urgency to address some of the facility concerns while also making sure that the mega investment that the county is going to have to make is the right one and is going to serve us over the many decades to come that we'll be needing to use those facilities. So you definitely have the commitment of administration to try and achieve both of those things as effectively as we can. I just want to name the inherent tension between them.
Thank you so much. And I'm reminded of the adage that I'm sure we have all heard thousands of times, that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I share the urgency. So you've got unanimous support up here, Sheriff, for moving this forward. I want to come to Consuelo for a moment. Thank you first for the update. And we're all recognizing that it's taken longer than initially anticipated for the engagement plan to come together. And could you share what some of the challenges have been to bring forward the plan for this unique process?
Thank you, Chair Ellenberg, for the question. I think the challenge is in any community engagement design, if we're not very clear what we're engaging the community with, then if you don't get that question right, then that ends up leading to a lot of time spent, a lot of fatigue from the community, from everybody here and members of the community and others that are interested stakeholders in not being very clear in what you're asking them. And then there's also mistrust that is resulted because if they feel they have an input and they really don't, then you're not building that trust with the community. And so, for instance, we're talking about a very technical report. What is the status of our facilities? That doesn't typically require community engagement as the way we think about community engagement. And so I think we've been struggling with what is it that we're actually engaging them with? And in this instance, is transparency. Yeah. What is the report? Why are we doing this? What will it lead to? And I think we are closer to really refining what those questions are to the community. And how do we then also use that as an opportunity to share with them in more basic terms what we're doing in the way of jail reform. There's a lot of great policy. There's a lot of great work that county administration has been working on in partnership with the Sheriff's Office, Custodial, and everybody in this room. And, is there a way that we can bring the community along so that they know and see it isn't just the facility work, all of this is also happening. How do you do that in parallel so that it doesn't take us 4 years to get through community engagement? And that's also where we're hoping to show you the technical piece and the timeline, and then where does that engagement connect through that timeline? Because again, you have a very technical report that doesn't require the community to opine on what the life cycle is of our roof for Main Jail North, for instance. I hope that helps explain the complexities of our inability to start, but also wanting to make sure that we get it right. Otherwise, we'll be back to square one in 2 years.
I very much appreciate how clearly you articulated the tension. And it really is, I think, quite a fine line to balance between prematurely engaging without clarity and then artificially engaging, frankly, too late when decisions have been made. So thank you for sharing that. And I suspect that many of the interested shareholders may be listening to this conversation. And what we have to do is strike that balance between wanting to be as inclusive as possible and continuing the forward movement. My understanding is that the work plan is going to come to the Board of Supervisors on April 8th, correct?
Thank you, Supervisor. I don't know that we will have a final version. We can definitely present a draft of those elements, but we, in our previous comments to both this committee and to CCLEM, made a commitment to co-design the community engagement plan and to want to honor that. And it's just a function of, can we meet the deadline? You will have enough information on the 8th to better understand the way that we're articulating the approach, but just know it would be a working draft if we presented anything on the 8th.
Great, thank you. Then my recommendation, let me hear from Greta first in case that influences.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Oh, okay. Was there another light? Yes. Oh, Dia Rosen, please.
Oh, thank you, supervisors. I just wanted to add, in terms of when we talk about urgency, it's not that this has been a 2 or a 4-year process. I was elected in 2010, and in 2011, at that point, the board had already, recognized the need for a new jail and began processes to build a new jail. And it was more than 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago now, that Main Jail South was taken down with the idea that a facility would be built there that would address the needs that the inmate population had, particularly around mental health. Then it was probably 6 years ago that the board was considering and had sent out RFPs to build a new jail. And then a small number of loud voices in the community said we should not build a new jail and we shouldn't build anything. And the board backed off of building a new jail. And now the board is considering, again, to build a new facility. As the sheriff knows, as I know, there are issues with the facility that we have that make it dangerous for inmates as well as staff and the community as well. And so I understand that we're beginning this process anew, but we need to get it moving, because even once the board decides we are going to build a jail, then you have to build it, and that takes time as well. And we endeavor to do things to the highest level in our county and to do excellent work, and we often achieve that. But other counties have built new jails much faster, new facilities. It was a dozen years ago that Supervisor Chavez and I went to the new facility in San Mateo County, just up north of us. So it can be done if there's a political will to do it, and it sounds like there certainly is from the board. And I welcome that. I think that both for the community outside the walls of the jail, as well as the individuals that are temporarily housed in the jail, additional facilities need to be built. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much. My recommendation for a motion today would be to accept the report and hold on further direction until the full Board of Supervisors meeting on April 8th, and depending on what the how definitive that report is, to then think about further direction on timeline and other progress markers. Does that work for you, Supervisor Lee?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that I would obviously prefer to see a timeline as early as possible, but if, only to the 8th, we're only talking about 3 weeks from now. And for something this big, it's important for the whole full board's input, so I think that's good. But I really do think that on the 8th, we need to come up of a direction to come up with a timeline of some sort to make sure that this project has a framework. And again, we slip on timeline and deadlines a lot of times for different projects, layout, adolescent, behavioral health, center. But it's being built. It's happening. It's finishing end of this year. It's very exciting. And with this project, I would say we really need to put the, shall I say what, the poles or stakes on the ground, so that we have some guideposts of time. So I think that would be very necessary, and I hope that we could actually accomplish that by that meeting. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Greta?
I just want to maybe mention one practical observation. I agree with all the feedback that's been offered. One thing that I would note that builds on some of the insights shared by the district attorney is that the proposed project that was got right to the point of approval and then was canceled would have dealt primarily with some of the major concerns at Main Jail. It would not have addressed what are some serious facility deficiencies and safety risks for both folks in our custody and the staff that work there at the Elmwood facility. The project that we're undertaking is more ambitious in that it looks at both campuses to try and create a master plan that will address the challenges we face in both places, because we must address the challenges that we face at both campuses. So I want to name that. What we absolutely can come back with the timeline on is our facility condition assessment and that planning process for identifying what projects we would then bring forward. And as the board knows, we're anticipating multiple different projects that will be needed to address the profound facility challenges on both campuses. So the timeline associated with those actual projects that we'll end up with is unknown, because we don't know yet what those projects will be. What we can come back with in April is the timeline for completing that facility condition assessment and planning process, and a rough outline for the in parallel community engagement process that we'll be doing around that facility condition assessment. Once that process is completed, we can then, as part of the process of teeing up options for the board's consideration around what projects we'll undertake, describe what we anticipate would be the timelines for those actual projects, as well as the cost. And I just want to make sure from an expectation management that there is going to be, I think, undoubtedly some very difficult choices to be made, some very difficult even opinions to be formed by important stakeholders in the community and on this dais about what number of projects and what projects we undertake, because the costs associated with the work that needs to be done in our jails is going to be so unbelievable. I'll just say, hey, I think we know that for certain, that it's going to have to be weighed against a number of other really critical public safety and justice investments that need to be made, as well as other broader investments to support the community. And so there will also be choices that impact the ultimate timeline that flow from some of those budgetary considerations that will absolutely be part of this as we move forward.
Thank you. I think it's clear that we are going into this with our eyes wide open, and really appreciate all of the really excellent and both supportive and sobering comments here that we need to take into consideration. Thank you all. Let's vote, please.
Vice Chairperson
Aye.
Lee and Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. We moved item 5 to consent. Item 6 is to receive the report from the Office of the Public Defender and the Office of the District Attorney relating to the Mental Health Arraignment Court pilot program.
Supervisor, as they're approaching, I can go ahead and just begin the introductions, which is the presentation is going to be by Neda Ale, who is the public defender's arraignment and PAR team supervisor, and then Branda Kimbrera from the district attorney's office, their camp supervisor, and they're joined at the table by Sarah McCarthy, who is our assistant public defender and part of the executive management team.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting us back to give an update and presentation on our mental health arraignment pilot. As Netta pulls up the slides, I'll just give everyone a recap. For some of you, this pilot may be new. For many of you, it may be a reminder of what the project is and what we are currently working on. At its core, this pilot is about early identification and intervention of our known mental health justice-involved population within Santa Clara County. We are doing so via a specialized arraignment held once a month in Judge Kelly Paul's department on Friday afternoons. What separates this arraignment from any other is the unique information sharing and multi-agency case conferencing that we do before we call said calendar. Just a reminder of what our goals are with this pilot. There are several. It is, again, to early identify and engage with our known mental health population within Santa Clara County. In doing so, it is also to reduce the jail population and time those individuals spend in custody. It is to develop and provide wraparound, personalized treatment and release plans for those individuals back into the community with relevant information being provided by all the necessary stakeholders. It's to return those clients to the community under those said programs as fast, as stable, and as safe as possible. This slide is meant to show the standard criminal case timelines of most cases, not within our mental health arraignment pilot. As you can see, generally speaking, from the point of initial arraignment until the individual is able to be with one of our mental health programs, generally that was a 6 to 9 month process. The reason being, historically, is one of 3 things would have to happen before an individual was with us in collaborative court and receiving mental health programming and treatment supervision. That individual would have to plead to the charges, or a doubt would have to be declared to that person's competency, or a mental health diversion or some form of diversion motion would have to be filed, argued, and then eventually make its way to the collaborative courts. During any of those, that individual would either remain in custody or may be out in the community without any mental health supervision or programming within the community. Netta will soon discuss how, through this pilot, we've been able to reduce those timelines drastically, in some instances by more than half, based on this pilot. So how are we doing it? How are we early identifying people? A multitude of different ways. We are doing it through referrals from the bench, through both of our offices identifying individuals that might be good candidates, through many of our mental health community partners, and also from lead arresting agencies. And that's the one I actually particularly want to highlight, because that's what's very different about this arraignment. What we have been receiving is referrals from arresting agencies. The MCAT unit is probably our largest provider of referrals. And what will happen is the agencies will be engaging with someone within the community. They might notice that they're symptomatic of a mental health issue. They might notice that they've engaged with that person on 4 prior times, been put on 5150 holds, and they will reach out to myself and my team about that individual. With that information, we then update the public defender's office of this individual is coming within the jails, has an arraignment set in the near future. Might be a good candidate for the PAR program. Netta and her team will then engage with that individual, and if appropriate candidate, will be selected for this mental health arraignment pilot program. I think the idea there is that is communication from many different agencies that we've never seen before in order to identify individuals that might be beneficial and suited for this program. Almost all of this is also done before that individual steps foot into their first courtroom. So who are our partners? This is a list of our collaborative team partners, and I want to thank each and every one of them. Many of them, some of them are on this panel before us today. They are all doing this out of the goodness of their heart in order to see if this pilot works and is successful. I think what you'll hear from Ned is that we believe that it has been quite successful. But what we do, how does this work? We select the individuals to be in the arraignment calendar. We then, like, as I mentioned prior, case conference. Each of these agencies you see on this slide will sit around and discuss what's best for this person. How we do so is through a release of information that is done by the Public Defender's Office. Then all these agencies sit together and discuss the client's current engagement in custody, medication compliance, amenability to community supervision and treatment, and what is the best release plan. Myself and the Public Defender's Office will then also engage in a conversation about where do we see this case going? Is this case ripe for mental health diversion or a disposition where we can get this person into the collaborative court system as soon as possible? This collaboration, information sharing is at the highest level and at the earliest stage than we've ever seen in this county. And I wanted to, again, thank these agencies for all the work they do. What we realize is each one does very, very amazing and independent work at different stages. And what we've been able to do through this pilot is bring them all to the table at one time at the earliest stage to engage and discuss about these clients. I'm now going to turn it over to Netta to discuss a little bit more about the actual numbers that we've serviced.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. So 4 areas where we have seen a huge improvement in the timelines from arraignment to disposition are our competency cases, our conservatorships, global dispositions, and mental health diversion cases. These are the types of cases that we see most frequently on our mental health arraignment calendar. Historically, these are points in the criminal proceedings where a client may experience some delays in getting to disposition or to treatment. However, with the mental health arraignment court pre-plea assessment model, the treatment team is able to assess and address the client's unique needs at these critical junctures in the criminal proceedings. A description of the cases is provided on the slides, but of course, Mr. Cabrera and I can answer any questions you have. For now, we'd like to move to showing you the data that supports the success of our program. The program started on October 18th, 2024. It is held weekly every Friday afternoon with the exception of holidays. At first, there were some growing pains as this was the first time that all of these agencies came to the table to discuss data and information sharing across agency lines. But with the help of County Council, we were able to develop the release of information that Brandon referenced. And once that was done, we hit the ground running with these case conferences. Since then, we've served a total of 23 clients and nearly 40 criminal dockets. On average, it takes up to 90 days for a client to appear on the mental health arraignment calendar and then be released to programming and treatment. A breakdown of the cases is on the slide here, but as you can see, a majority of the cases are our competency cases, our mental health diversion cases, and our global dispositions. Our work in the mental health arraignment court really focuses on early intervention and underscores what we know to be true, which is early intervention and treatment are the most effective and humane model for treating this very vulnerable population. As depicted in the graph, clients in the mental health arraignment court go from arraignment to resolution in at least half of the time that a traditional criminal case would take. For our cases that result in a plea and supervision in mental health treatment court, we've seen a reduction of 3 months in that timeline. For conservatorships, a reduction of over 5 months in that timeline. For resolutions after a client is restored to competency, a reduction of over 3 months. Declarations of doubt as to the client's competency, a reduction of over 2 months. And lastly, with our mental health diversion cases, a reduction of over 6 months. In each of these cases, again, early identification and intervention has created the most impactful reduction in the length of incarceration, as well as the time it takes for a client to reach disposition. In all of these examples, the clients are assessed and released to programming within 2 to 6 weeks of appearing on the mental health arraignment calendar. In conclusion, we just want to thank the board for the opportunity to present on this program. We are very proud of the work that the program is doing. We believe that the program leads with compassion and enhances public safety by increasing the likelihood of positive outcomes when we focus on expedited treatment to enhance stabilization and reduce recidivism. We believe that this is a therapeutic solution that will also reduce incarceration and really serve an incredibly vulnerable population. So thank you.
Thank you for that really, really excellent presentation. I'm going to look first to the public for comments, then I imagine you'll hear lots on the dais. Do we have public speakers, Nancy?
There are no requests.
Alrighty then, let me come up to folks on the dais. I'll begin with alternate public defender Sylvia Perez McDonald.
So this is a wonderful solution, right? Because what this does is it creates an expressway for adjudication that otherwise does not exist. And I think the only difficult and challenging part about this is that when we have really complex cases with some complex mental health, cognitive impairment type issues, as you can see, it requires a lot of time, a lot of effort and dedication from multiple people and multiple sources. The challenge for us is the need is so vast. How do we then duplicate it and maximize it in a way that we create, a broader impact for the need? And I think that is the challenge about resources and time, but I think with the creativity, the collaboration, and the enhanced communication, I think we can do that. One huge lesson learned here was, in the past, we've operated in silos because of the confidentiality and information sharing barriers that we have naturally and are reasonable, but sometimes they are an impediment to solutions. And so here, this is a really great model that we can use, in the future. So I think the work is great, and I really commend the leadership of the DA's office, Brandon, and the Public Defender's Office for doing such a tremendously important job, and we're hopeful that this can be expanded soon.
Thank you. Judge Emily, I want to call if your lights.
Sorry. Good morning. Thank you so much. Great presentation. I really appreciate it. There are a couple of challenges that come up for us. One has to do with the resources that are available to us if somebody qualifies to be released, right? That is a current challenge in terms of whether there are places for people to be released to. And the other is just, of course, scaling it up. And scaling it up requires resources that we don't currently have. It's a great program. I wish we could do it in more places, but it will require there being sufficient locations to release people to where they can be properly treated, and that then those locations would also help those people get housing after they've been stabilized. That is now our current challenge, is not necessarily even the first point, or in addition to the first point is the second point. Once they've been stabilized, where to release them to. So I think that those are challenges we face. But I am very hopeful by this kind of program, and we continue to hope that we can scale this into different kinds of areas, as long as we have the resources that make it possible.
Acting Public Defender Silver.
Thank you. I just want to thank you both for the presentation and uplift and kind of highlight the point about, I think Brandon made about collaboration, and Judge Emity. I want to actually specifically call out Judge Paul, who I think has played a really critical role in the success of this particular calendar. So, Judge Emity, I'd like to pass that on to you directly. And I want to thank DA Rosen, because I think that this all happens because of the collaboration between our two offices, and collectively the collaboration with so many of the people who've contributed this. The last point I would make is that I think this is an example of return on investment that the Board of Supervisors had done in terms of our arraignment and pre-arraignment work. And I know that we have struggled with budget, and that unit has been impacted, but I think as the board has continued to communicate support for that work, and the county administration office has continued to communicate support in that work, and we continue to work towards bridging some of the change in services. This is a perfect example of, I think, return on investment. We can see it right on those graphs.
And I'm going to add in now, I know Matt wants to speak, Damon, but you just sort of teed me up perfectly, because I really want to measure and be clear about that impact. We're seeing the tremendous value that early intervention and pre-plea models have on reducing the length of time incarceration, providing better client outcomes, including maintaining connections to services. So I'll make a motion now and then come back to more speakers. I'd like to receive the report and to direct administration to develop, in partnership with the appropriate partners, with the appropriate departments, including the district attorney, public defender, custody health, and the county budget office, and anyone else who's appropriate to be part of this, to provide an off-agenda analysis of the estimated cost savings for our system, comparing the average client that receives pre-arraignment representation and intervention versus one that doesn't, including costs associated with incarceration, healthcare delivery, et cetera. And I'd like this report to be completed ahead of the May budget workshops, so that we can make some real data-driven decisions in what is going to be a very stressful budget process. Would you like to second that motion?
I'll second. I see a lot of comments on this side, so I'll let them speak.
Okay.
I'm just chiming in to say, I think because of the extensive work that would be required on that analysis, that should be done as a referral through the board. That is the motion for the two of you to recommend that to the board or to make it as a request today. I just want to clarify that.
Then this is a referral from the dais. Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking if you are intending as the committee to take the recommendation to the full board to make a referral, or if you're asking for just some information to come back from staff. And maybe I could ask Greta to chime in on the analysis that would be required if it's the former.
Good point. Yeah, that's fair. Go ahead, Greta.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak a little bit about what I think that would entail. And I think there's some important considerations actually that would be helpful to get the committee's input on. It definitely would be a major undertaking requiring lots of coordination and information gathering across multiple departments and a huge investment of staff time. Happy to do it. Mm-hmm. Of course, I'll just observe, I think this program is fantastic. I hugely support it. I think it accomplishes many critical policy and human goals by making sure that we don't have folks kind of languishing in the traditional approach to adjudication when in fact they really need to be on a specialized track. And what I see as the major intervention is getting folks to that track much earlier in the process and cutting off a long period of time where they sort of languish going through normal channels. What I will say in terms of cost analysis, and I think candidly we've seen this in some other areas of the county's work, this is a program worth pursuing and supporting, not because it saves costs, because I think actually the analysis will show just the opposite. Unfortunately, unless we take a huge number of folks out of our jail, we have to maintain current staffing and operational investments in keeping the jail running. So the number of folks that we're able to divert and the amount of time in custody that we're able to reduce doesn't allow us to, for example, close down a huge portion of our jail, thereby saving custody resources. It doesn't allow us to close like the APU. It doesn't allow us to stand down programming for folks in custody. It also is going to increase our costs on the out of custody side in terms of some of the points that Judge Emity made, which is we are, as you know, and we'll be bringing forward an example of this at the March 25th board meeting, substantially increasing our investments and growing the number of beds we fund specifically for justice-involved populations to get that post-detention sets of really intensive mental health treatment resources and then longer-term housing supports that allow them to maintain stability and not go back into custody. So I just want to name that as some of the fiscal realities we face and have been grappling with as we make major expansions of investments on the housing and mental health treatment side while not really being able to reduce our investments on the criminal justice side.
I think those are really excellent points that definitely warrant further thought on my part. I'm going to withdraw the motion so that I have a little bit more time to think about both the timing and the actual purpose, because what I'm looking to do essentially is we know the investments make sense. We know they work. We know that they are morally and ethically the correct way to engage with people. It's so tempting to want to also say, yeah, and it's fiscally responsible too, and it saves us money. What it truly does is create a healthier, stronger community. But as I said, I'm going to pull that back now and think about that a little more. And thank you very much for the feedback.
I'll make one other point. I do think there is something that's worth analyzing, and I mentioned this to the Public Defender's Office, the District Attorney's Office, but I'll take advantage of the opportunity of having the court present as well. I think where we actually do see some really meaningful opportunities that we should quantify is in the staff time in the justice system that it frees up to not have spent those many months dealing with the cases through the normal process. For example, all the hearings, both court time and attorney time that would have been spent processing that case in the normal course have now been saved, have the opportunity to be redirected towards these types of functions. And so I do think there's some analysis and opportunity that county administration is less in a position to do, but I hope some opportunities for us to redirect what might be attorney resources being devoted currently towards that normal approach to case adjudication and court resources towards this much better policy-aligned approach. Same on the behavioral health side, and I'll just credit Deputy County Executive Rocio Luna and Deputy County Executive Key Lee for really doing a deep dive in how we're allocating responsibility between custody health and behavioral health. We're in a process of transitioning some of the roles and responsibilities to try and expedite some of the mental health assessments and analyses that currently have been happening both in the custody health side and on the outpatient behavioral health side, trying to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts and actually getting those completed sooner. So I think we have lots of opportunities like that to better utilize our existing investments of staff time and resources to do the work better and to align with the policy goal of not having folks experiencing serious mental illness, languish in custody, especially where the underlying criminal activity really has to do with their need for treatment.
Thank you very much. I see your light. I skipped over Matt Fisk a little bit earlier, so I'm going to go to him first.
Actually, I think all of my comments were covered with everything that was said. I would just thank the DA's office, the public defender, and the court for their leadership. It really is a labor of love. On top of everything that everybody's doing listed, they do this to see if it's going to work. And to use a Brandon Cabrera term, smallify, just started with a very small group to refine that and see what resources it takes. So I'm really excited to see where this can go.
Thank you very much. Sylvia.
What I just wanted to say was that I think your initial intuition to request that we look at it from, yes, it feels great, but in terms of like assessing where, as we are increasing our numbers and as it's moving forward, how do we measure value, right? Even if it's not quantifiable in cost savings per se, but if it's quantifiable in other ways. And I think because we have small numbers, I think it is possible for there to be a measurement of some type and then identify what it is that we're trying to measure. What outcome are we trying to see? I think there is value in that, because if we do want to replicate and scale up when possible, then we want to see what is it that we want to pursue. So I think that there is value in that, and I think we can and should pursue that if possible, because otherwise we're not being as evidence-based. We're being sort of like, it just feels good, but we're not relying on anything objective. And I think that would be great for us to move in that direction, so that if we do want to scale up, we're using some concrete measuring outcomes. And I'll leave it to the people that are really doing this to see how that is going to be measured. For example, in tracking the 23 people that have been served, where are they? And how are we going to track those individuals to see, did we get placements? How did we achieve that? What creativity and innovation and communication was required for that? Well, then that adds value to how we move forward with really complex cases in the future. So there's there's nothing in numbers, but there's a quantifiable in the learning experience and in the knowledge that then we can reapply to our process. And I will also add that this is a thing that has been achieved without PAR, right? It is within PAR, but it's already part of the system. We just created another outlet and another avenue and another sort of creative way of looking at the litigation. We're stuck in a process, but we shouldn't be stuck on that based on this learning experience. So.
Thank you very much. Sheriff Johnson.
Yeah, I'll just keep it quick. I really appreciate the comment on value and really want to thank everybody involved because I do think this is a great program as well. Getting people out of custody into the services they need. You can't ask for a better equation, but I do think there's value in looking at how it's working. And that's one thing I didn't see is, yes, we're getting them out earlier, they're getting into the treatment, but are they staying out of custody? Because as we know, especially with some of the people that we bring into the system or brought into the system, mental health is an aspect. So are they getting the treatment that's keeping them out of custody on a long term? So I could see that being one of those data points. Thank you.
Do we track? That's an excellent question. Do we track that?
I could actually answer a bit of that. So
Thanks,
what
Brandon.
we do when we flag everyone, any individual, and we put them on the mental health arraignment calendar is my team creates an outlook for that individual in our internal system, meaning I'm notified whenever a new issuing packet comes to our office associated with that individual. So to date, of the 23 individuals, we have not received a new issuing packet for any of them yet. Now, granted, we're only at the 6-month mark, but to date, nothing yet. I think that also goes probably to the selection process that Netta and I do of determining whether it's the right individual at the right time in their life and it's an appropriate candidate for this program. When we look at cases, we're looking at, is the client ready? And that's what I rely on Netta to do and her team to meet with the individual to determine if they're ready for treatment and programming. Not everyone is, as we know, in the collaborative court systems. And the other one is an engagement and conversation that we have daily, really, about these clients, about is this the appropriate case? Do we see this particular case, this individual, being in our collaborative court system in the near future? And that's the concept, right? Let's get them to where they need to go sooner. So, knock on wood, to date, no new referrals on any of these individuals so far.
Given the needs of this population, 6 months is impressive, and I assume you'll continue to track that. How incredible will it be to come back in 6 months and say it's been a year, and hopefully with the same zero return number? That's really interesting. Thank you.
And
Clara-
Supervisor, I would just add that
yes.
part of the success, I think, is just to highlight the partnerships again, is being able to partner with pretrial services and the reentry center to help add even more additional support to these clients as they're released. We see a lot of these clients coming back to court before we're able to resolve their cases. Even though the timeline to resolution is shorter, it does still take a little bit of time. And as those clients are released and coming back to court out of custody, we are also able to experience their successes in that way and see how well they're doing. And if they do need any additional support, we have our system partners there to offer that hand to the client, which I think has been incredibly successful.
I am so impressed by the work that you all are doing. It really is tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking
Just
for
wanted to add one other point, which is, in addition to tracking whether these folks are coming back into the criminal justice system, committing new offenses, in parallel to this effort, under the direction of the two members of this committee, a lot of the expansion work in behavioral health has really augmented the ability to achieve success, and a big additional investment has been shifting the model. A lot of these clients get referred to our intensive outpatient programs, and we've really shifted the approach to keeping folks stably housed in those programs, managing the housing differently. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is tracking those housing outcomes. As the board is aware, we shifted from having a decentralized model where the various mental health providers tried to support the clients as best they could in getting housed and providing them supplemental support for maintaining housing stability, to a more centralized model that also facilitates not only implementation of best practices and more efficient use of that housing subsidy, but also tracking of their housing stability outcomes. And since we know there's such a strong correlation between folks being able to stay on a good track in terms of their mental well-being, their substance use, and staying out of involvement in the criminal justice system. If they're able to stay stably housed over the long term, we'll be able to report better on those outcomes for this population as well.
Thank you.
May I just quickly add, I think that one of the challenges that we're wrestling with, and in part is, as Greta just mentioned, is understanding some shifting in how behavioral health is managing, for instance, the housing stock and access. But I think it goes to a broader question that I'd encourage us all to keep our eye on, which is one of the kind of pivot points or linchpins of all of this working is getting these clients assessed as quickly as possible and in a efficient manner. And we have to commit 100% of our resources to make sure that that is happening, because Brandon can't make any decisions, our team can't make any decisions, the court can't make any decisions unless we have those assessments completed and completed in a timely and efficient manner.
And do you have concerns presently about the timing or efficiency?
Well, what I would say, and I think this asks or invites a broader conversation, is some of those timelines that we're seeing reduced are a product of how the assessment process traditionally has unfolded in recent years. And so that's the process that gets people to Judge Manley's mental health treatment court. It's how people are assessed as they enter the collaborative courts. And so we're seeing that the assessment construction, as I understand it, is often taking months at a time. And so getting these assessments completed, especially obviously for our clients who are in custody, and removing barriers to that is something that I think we should all explore and make sure that we're delivering on.
Thank you, Judge.
I mean, I don't think that this is necessarily a meeting to get into a deep dive about what's happening with assessments, but I learned today that behavioral health informed the Public Defender's Office and the DA's office that they are no longer going to conduct assessments in jail or by tablet, which would require somebody to then come to court to be assessed. And I don't know that we have enough courtrooms to have everyone assessed in court. So I completely agree that fundamentally this all requires the resources. Like, the court is happy to hear these cases, but we can't do anything without the assessments and without the resources. So
I see Greta's brow furrowing, and I know we have Deputy County Executive Key Lee here as well. Can we clarify that?
Sure. I think one, please, if you don't mind, just if you can share whatever was the communication. I think we've had some communication challenges around some of the pivots that we referenced earlier, which is some of the assessing that was we had duplicative assessments happening in custody regularly to inform the treatment folks were getting while they were in the jails. And then kind of brief assessments for purposes of outpatient treatment post-release from jail happening in court through the behavioral health department, totally separate from custody health. The work that we're doing now is to shift to make sure that the in-custody folks who are seeing these clients every single day, doing really detailed assessments to make sure they're getting the right treatment while in custody, can then inform the work that has to happen in court to plan for their release to the community. And so I'm wondering if there may have been also just some confusion as we shift which staff are doing what work around what assessments are going to happen and how those are going to be supporting the court process. But we'll make sure to get that clarified, both for the court, the public defender, and for the committee.
I want to be clear that, if I may, sorry.
Please.
I want to be clear that the information we have comes from the District Attorney's Office and the Public Defender's Office. We've not received that information directly. And so maybe there is some, I would be greatly relieved if it turns out that this is just a miscommunication about the difference between behavioral health and custody health. That would be, but at the end of the day, this is not really, I'm sharing it because I have the information. At the end of the day, this is for all of you to sort out, but it does, for our courts that rely so heavily on these assessments, it's very alarming when we get that kind of report without all the information. So I think we just have to figure out what's really going on.
District Attorney Rosen.
Yeah, I just wondered, is there a way to get some kind of report back to this committee about the assessment process and what's happening?
There sure is. Let's make that happen.
Sure. I'll just go ahead and make a motion first to receive the report, and two is let's come back to this committee again regarding the specific issue regarding the
I
assessment.
think we need it faster. I would ask for it off agenda rather than at the next
Okay,
meeting.
sure. No, that's fine.
So
Yeah,
that we
I'm-
can
yeah, sure.
clarify
If we
whether
could
there's
get
a communication issue or substance issue.
Absolutely, because we want this program to be successful. If this is something that we can resolve quickly, so that we can make sure that it doesn't interrupt the current work. Thanks.
Maybe I can make a suggestion to the committee. I think we can send a quick off-agenda email communication clarifying the specific issue that was raised. And then I think we can agendize an update on prior reporting that we've done to this committee about the assessment process that really describes some of the efficiencies and process improvements that are underway now involving collaboration between custody health and the behavioral health department, and agendize that at an appropriate juncture with input from Supervisor Ellenberg.
Okay, I'll incorporate that into the motion.
Excellent. I'll second all of that. Thank you. Are there any final comments on this? Thank you all for the thoughtful presentation and the really robust discussion. Oh, of course.
Sorry. So first of all, the word I have in my notes is wow when I read this. And I just want to say for both the supervising public defender, Alai, and also the supervising district attorney, Clara, and your team of this collaboration is absolutely eye-opening. And of course, with your leadership of the DA and the public defender here. This is a true example of how we break down the intrinsic adversarial relationship between these two offices, and how, when it works together, it truly is serving the public in so many ways. The collaborative team concept of all these folks, like you say, sit around, they're not just sitting around, they're really solving some very important issues that require all of the inputs. So I would just say this type of intervention and treatment to divert folks from this traditional court timeline, if you've seen, saving half or even more of the time is huge. And one thing I also want to thank the county counsel's office is I have dealt with similar issues trying to help unhoused folks. And the first thing I'd run into problems is the privacy issues, release information issues. So getting those release of information forms signed is such a big deal. So I'm so glad that got resolved, and hopefully we could, in many ways we could streamline that process, because all the folks really needs to be there to get the info to help the folks. And as said earlier by our ADO representatives, that we really need to scale this, right? 23 folks are great in October as a pilot, but I think there's so many ways we need to scale this and put the resources into it, because whether we have that comprehensive report to show the cost savings, not just the chart you showed, the time saved in custody, that's huge, but the time saved on the DA's office dealing with the case, this time saved in the PD's office, same case. I mean, look, I know you guys have way too many caseloads anyways. Any case being saved is on both sides, so I think it's huge savings in so many ways. And at the end of the day, though, even without the cost savings, is the humanity part of what we're talking about. Why are folks who need mental or behavioral health needs being stuck in a jail cell? That's just wrong. And we've all known that. And so I'm just so happy to read this report. The other part I'm surprised is that there was no public comment. And that's the other part that I'm surprised, because how great this program is, that the press is not making a big thing about it. And because I think this is something that's to be duplicatable in other jurisdictions as well. And all the fanfare you hear about arresting homeless people, throwing them in jail and all that, which we know is not a solution whatsoever, which is catching on the press. This is what needs to be in the press to let people know this is absolutely the way we could help solve that issue. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Supervisor, and I appreciate you making that point. I'll just say, again, that this is really wonderful, amazing work. It also touches on, as we mentioned, a lot of other really critical reform efforts that the board has championed. And I do hope that we do see more attention paid to these types of innovations. I would also say it really speaks to a point that we were discussing earlier with respect to the jail reform and facility transformation process, which this is illustrative of work around which I think a lot of the folks who've engaged on the jail facility conversation, we hope will also really tune into and pay attention to examples like this, where we're putting major effort and resources into diverting folks from custody who really shouldn't be there.
Thank you.
That's all
Anything
I have.
additional?
Thank you. Ready to vote?
Excellent. Let's vote, please. Motion by Lee, second by Ellenberg.
Vice Chairperson Lee
Aye.
and Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We will move now. Thank you all very much for the report. Item, where are we? 7 is a report from the District Attorney's Office relating to crime statistics for the calendar year 2023. And we are welcoming, I believe, Assistant District Attorney James Gibbons Shapiro.
Hi, everybody. Hello. I'm James Gibbons Shapiro from the DA's office. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. And move this to presentation mode. Okay. That should be ready to go, Madam Clerk. All right, good morning, everybody. You have as part of your ledge file 2 reports. One is the countywide crime report. So after the summer, when all the law enforcement agencies provide all their crime data from the previous year, we compile all that data and then do some analysis of it for each of the police agencies, each of the cities, and then for all of you about city-by-city data and also countywide data. Also included is the latest domestic violence death review team report, which talks about domestic violence deaths and also trends. What I'm going to talk about today is some highlights from those 2 reports together, and then I'm going to say, luckily, for me, the last hearing for public safety and justice didn't happen, and we're all here today, and that gave me the opportunity to provide some information about early word on 2024 data and some thoughts for 2025. So that's what I'm going to talk about. We're going to start with the main points from the 2 reports that you received. One was that in 2023 in our county, violent crime increased, and the lead indicators or lead categories of violent crime increase in 2023 were aggravated assaults. So these are assaults that mostly use a weapon, like a gun, an increase in domestic violence, and included and related into those violent crime numbers are also increases in crimes against children. And I think you've received previously the impact report from the Children's Advocacy Center that showed that in 2023, there were 58% more forensic medical exams of children at the Children's Advocacy Center. So 2023 showed in various key categories increases in violent crime, and also a decrease in property crime in our county in 2023, with the largest decrease being burglaries. Burglaries are thefts from a structure like a house or a business. Shoplifting is not included in burglary. I want to linger for a minute about this domestic violence numbers that increased in 2023 because they're part of a multi-year trend. This is data from our county from 2001, and you can see that reported domestic violence to our police agencies. So a call for service is a 911 call where police officers take a report. So reported domestic violence to our police agencies has been steadily increasing since 2013. So now I'm going to go to what happened in 2024. It's a little early to say the whole story about 2024 because most of the data we're going to get about 2024 isn't going to come to the summer, but I've got some early indicators. One is some national data from the FBI on the first half of 2024. So the FBI is reporting that in all major crime categories in the first half of 2024, nationwide, crime decreased. So violent crime decreased by 10.3% and property crime by 13.1%. This is now data from 40 cities in the United States. And if you look at the gray bar compared to the purple bar, that's 2024 compared to 2023, you'll see that in all of these major crime categories, there was a decrease in those 40 cities in 2024 compared to 2023. What about here in Santa Clara County? We have some data from the San Jose Police Department from the last 9 months of 2023 and the last 9 months of 2024. And I'll just say, why is it the last 9 months? Because San Jose PD changed to a new reporting system in April of 2023. And so in order to have a true apples to apples comparison, you have to use that same reporting system. So it's last 9 months of 2023, last 9 months of 2024. And you can see for major violent crime categories, especially the biggest one of aggravated assault, violent crime in our county decreased in 2024. That's important for a lot of reasons, but important for the discussion you've been having today. So what happens on the street, what happens in our community has a big effect on the jail population. Our jails are mostly populated by people who are in custody for crimes of violence. So a decrease in reported crimes of violence had an impact on our jail population in 2024. So this is number, and I just want to compliment Sheriff Johnson that the latest data that your office has been providing about the jail population online is invaluable for all of us to analyze what we're doing. So thank you. This is data from the Sheriff's data dashboard on the jail from a year ago, March 3rd of 2024. The jail population was just shy of 3,000. Last week, it was 2743. I actually checked this morning. It's 2710 today. Looking at this is also from the Sheriff's Department website. These are jail population over the last 4 years. And you can see that in December of 2023, the jail population was 3071. It's down 10.7% since December of 2023. And I'll just remind you that the biggest violent crime category in our county, aggravated assaults, biggest law enforcement agency in our county, San Jose Police Department, aggravated assaults were down 10%. In 2024, it's not surprising that our jail, which is populated mostly by people charged with violent crimes, was also down 10% in 2024. And I'll note for all of you that you know this fact that the jail population in 2014 was over 4,000 people. I noted that domestic violence rose like other categories in 2023. The early word on domestic violence in 2024 is that it went up again. So we have data from our own DA's office, referrals from police agencies. You saw in an earlier chart that there were 7,313 calls for service in 2023, and then in 2024, we got 7,618 domestic violence police reports. Those calls for service and referrals to the DA's office track almost one-to-one. And so we saw, unlike some other crime categories, domestic violence, reported domestic violence in our county continued to rise. I say reported domestic violence, I always say that because it's an underreported crime. And so the number of reports we get is what we're tracking. And we don't know whether that rise in reports has to do with concerted outreach efforts, an actual rise in perpetration of domestic violence, or a combination of those two things. So I'm going to end with some question marks for 2025. One is that we have seen in early 2025 an increase in retaliatory gang violence. It's the case that all of the murders in San Jose so far in 2025 have been gang murders. And those of you who've been keeping track, and I know on this committee you do, that there's just been an increase in different kinds of gang violence in different parts of our community, including the jail. And the other thing that's a question mark for 2025, so we don't know if that's going to continue. The other thing that we don't know for 2025 is there's definitely fear in our community about immigration enforcement at all sorts of levels. And whether that's going to result in decreased calls to 911, we certainly hope that people will continue to ask for help regardless of immigration status. But we're going to have to monitor that through 2025, and that's going to have an effect on these numbers as well. So thanks so much, and I'm ready for questions if you have any.
Thank you so much for the report, James. I'll look first for public comments.
There is one request to speak on Zoom.
All right, no one in chambers. Just doing another scam. Did you turn in a yellow card?
Oh, yes, and one in chambers.
Thank you for flagging that. If no one else is joining, we'll hear first from our speaker in person and then on Zoom, please.
Okay, our first speaker is Ray Kitty.
Hi there. Just FYI, I'm vice chair of CCLIM, but I'm speaking as an individual, not authorized in any way to speak for CCLIM at this moment. I love these numbers. I look at that year-long graph, but I want to switch it to, so what's the population for felonies? What's the population for misdemeanors? What's the population for men, right? It only has the entire the longitudinal year-long line in the data dashboard that the sheriff's put up. I wanted to describe a number, though, that I think will be clearer. Say you have a small jail with 10 people in it. On Monday through Friday, you look at, on Monday, 2 people come in and 2 people leave. On Tuesday, 2 people come in, 2 people leave. That goes on through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Your jail population has been 10, but there's another number, which is 20, the number of people who have been in your jail, right? And that's not something we have as visible. Every day, the sheriff generates information on the population, and of course, that number is important. Your population, your 3,000, that's your beds, that's your how much square footage you need, that's your custodial needs, right? But the other number, which is much, much bigger, we don't know how big it is. It might be 10 or 15 or even 30,000 people for our jail. How many people have been in at some time in the last 365 days? That's a much bigger number. And that's not your facility number, that's the shadow of your facility into the community, right? Because when that number goes up or down, that's not saying you need more beds, that's saying behavioral health is going to have more work in a couple months. That's saying everybody else is going to have more work, if that number goes up, right? It's the footprint of the jail in the community. So I was just suggesting it might be useful to, let's do every day, let's do that number. What does that number do? Because that's a number that has a lot in it, and that number.
Thank you very much. And now to our Zoom speaker.
Next speaker is iPhone. I'm unmuting you. You have 2 minutes to speak. You may begin speaking.
Yes, I really question how accurate these numbers really are. I know for a fact that a lot of crime in our county is just being swept under the rug. If I could, I told you guys before, my kids are being sexually molested. And I mean, it doesn't count if there's no screening or it's not recognized by law enforcement. And that's what's going on. I mean, because there's people who are connected, Judge Towery and Valerie Houghton, these are connected people. And because they want the sexual abuse to continue, then nobody does anything and it doesn't get recorded as a crime. And that's just, it's really morally wrong to do. And also, like violent crime, you say it's down, but it's not really down. I mean, like, I can tell you that everybody here is overlooking the fact that I'm being physically assaulted because I won't give up my quest to protect my kids. I mean, I've had serious bodily injury because of all this. And, if you Google Valerie Houghton, Houghton, sex trafficking, I posted the picture of my injuries on several websites. I mean, it's changed my facial structure. It's damaged all my organs. I mean, it's created a lot of physical harm to me, and I mean that doesn't get recorded either. So I mean, I know other people are going through the same thing with their kids, and it's not getting recorded either. So I mean, we really need to change this so we can get more accurate numbers out there. Thank you for your time.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. I'll look first to anyone on the dais that has comments.
May I ask
District Attorney? Public Defender Silver, sorry.
James, can I just ask one point of clarification? When there's reference to domestic violence, is that exclusive to intimate partner violence? Or I know sometimes, at least in our county, we talk about family violence, which there are different mechanisms in play. I just wanted clarification on that.
Such a great question, Damon. So the numbers that I showed you about domestic violence are, intimate partner violence, so violence between romantic partners or former romantic partners.
Chief Probation Officer.
Yeah, and I would just echo and highlight that we have seen more folks on formal probation for domestic violence related offenses over the past year as well. So I think we're over 800 adults in our system that we supervise just for domestic violence and family violence matters.
That's interesting information. Thank you, James. Thanks for the report. I was heartened to see a significant decline in DV-related deaths. Your data showed that in 2023 there were 4 recorded murders, which is clearly 4 too many, but the lowest number since reporting began in 1993. And I think that really does speak to the tremendous efforts and investments by the county, by yourself directly, members of the DV Council, and other community partners to prevent these instances. I appreciate the data, and I think we've talked at different times over the years about different approaches to reduce this sort of violence, and to think about best pathways to reduce recidivism and to mitigate the ancillary damage that comes. You mentioned immigration concerns. There's often resulting homelessness, financial challenges, and a whole series of other negative outcomes that impact the reporting. You commented on the underreporting. I'd be interested, I'm not asking for it today, but at some point to really think about and maybe study the range of possible responses to domestic violence. And certainly the district attorney has focused on one really important way of protecting victims and survivors, but I suspect that there's a much broader discussion to be had here, and the report gave me a lot to think about, so thank you for that. Supervisor Lee.
Yeah, first, I do have one request. First of all, thank you for the report. Very, very informative and helpful to understand what the trend is. And the report mentions initiatives like monitoring crime trends, identifying priority firearms offenders, solving gun crimes, but it doesn't specifically talk about the exact methods of accomplishing these type of goals, how we get there. So I would like to see if it's possible to get an off-agenda report outlining the detailed strategies and procedures that the Crime Strategies Unit will use in partnership with our county law enforcement agencies to reduce violent crime specifically. Is that doable?
That's absolutely doable, and we'll be more than honored to provide that off-agenda report.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to receive report with that request as well.
Excellent, happy to second that.
Great, thank you.
Other comments on this item? Seeing none, let's vote.
Vice Chairperson Lee?
Aye.
And Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you very much. All right, item 8, I believe we handled on consent, and thank you very much. I know that report was requested by the court and was fascinating to read. Thank you for getting that information in front of us. That brings us now to our study session, just about right on time. It's 11:33, so I would invite members of the Reentry Network who are with us to, Nancy, where are the name tags?
I'm sorry, they're right.
To grab a name tag and join us on the dais, and when that space runs out, please join us on the tables in front. Okay, and during this study session, I certainly encourage all of the members who are joining us, as well as everyone on the dais, to participate fully by asking questions, offering recommendations, sharing your own experiences. At the end of the discussion, the motion in any direction would be made by Supervisor Lee and myself, but your input and recommendations are really valued to helping us shape that recommendation. So who am I turning to present information to start? Hello. And as a reminder, our topic for this session is late night releases.
start.
Go ahead, please.
All right. Good morning. I'm Captain Rita Rowland. I am the Elmwood Division Commander, and I have with me presenting Dr. Holly Chow, who is the Restorative Services Director. Today, we will be given a jail release study with a focus on night releases. The Sheriff's Office must work within the parameters of the legal statutes when it comes to releases. Releases are processed expeditiously in adherence and with applicable laws. Court releases that do not have any stipulations are prioritized for processing. The goal is to capture the total number of individuals that are released to the public from the jails. That means out the front door or to the street. When it comes to late night releases, the data will include those individuals who have been released based on their sentence being served completely, releases for other reasons like individuals released on their own recognizance, booked and released, court released orders. Charges have been dropped, dismissed, acquittals, misdemeanor citations, that's after booking, and those individuals who have posted bail. The data does not include those individuals who have been released based upon being transferred to either prisons, other jails, hospitals, those individuals who are out in the community on programs like the electric monitoring program or alternative custody programs. The cite and releases that take place out in the communities, those without jail bookings are not included in this data. As you can see from the data in this information that we do have many people that are released back into the community from custody. The data shows that if you look at the period from 2019 to 2024, a period of 6 years, in 2019, the releases were at the highest peak, about 8.9 thousand. There was a significant drop in 2020, and then when you look at 2021 to 2022, gradual increase ranging from 5.3 thousand to 6.3 per quarter. 2023, you see a stabilization at 6.8 per quarter. And then in 2024, we see continued increase ranging from 7.3 thousand in that quarter, slightly decreasing to 7 in the fourth quarter. Here's a summary of the release types. Again, over a period of 6 years, there was 103,725 releases. The most common releases was those individuals that were released after serving time. The largest category of over 30,000. The next one was the supervised OR or pretrial with 23, just slightly over 23,000. The trends here show that a significant drop in releases in 2020 and 2021, followed by steady increases in 2022 and 2024. Recent increase, 2024 had the highest number of releases at 19,000, showing a continual uptrend. Here is, again, a summary of the calendar year 2024 release times by gender. The key takeaways here is that most releases occur during the day for both genders. Females are more likely to be released in the daytime and evening than males. And males have a higher percentage of nighttime releases compared to females. Summary again of calendar year 2024 for the late night releases. We consider those releases being released at 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. The key takeaways from there, supervised releases and OR court releases are the leading reasons for late night releases. Females are more likely to be released on bail bonds. Males have a slightly higher percentage of time served releases. In this picture, you can see that Santa Clara has the highest late-night releases when you compare it to other counties. Santa Clara has the lowest evening releases percentages when you also compare it to other counties. Why Santa Clara has higher late-night releases? We have outdated paper-based systems, delays processing, unlike other counties who have modern jail management systems. Slow processing requires individuals to return to their housing areas instead of what some of the other counties are doing, or expediting their releases by putting the individuals in holding areas while they're waiting for their releases. Also, extended bail hours that we have from 5 a.m. to 12 a.m., and pretrial services at night naturally increase nighttime releases. Approaches to support individuals at release, systems improvement, ongoing efforts to enhance care for those that are released at night. We have the group Women in Custody group. They coordinate pre-release support. We also have our rehabilitation officers who provide legal, housing, and healthcare resources. They also refer individuals to Reentry Resource Center service navigators. And for immediate support at release, we check the individuals to see if they have transportation, if they have a place to stay. If they don't, we provide taxi vouchers or bus tokens. The individuals can stay at the Mission Street Recovery. There was a pilot that was launched May 1st of 2023. Now it's a permanent program. It basically offers overnight stay for individuals between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. It also provides transportation support with taxi vouchers or bus passes if needed, and that's during the daytime hours. When we consider delayed releases, many counties use what is called a voluntary delayed release approach. Basically allows individuals who are released between 6 p.m. and 5 a.m. to opt in for daytime release instead. San Francisco has a model where individuals complete a voluntary form to choose immediate or delayed release. They can change their decision at any time, but cannot stay in custody more than 16 hours. Who else is doing delayed releases? Here is a summary of counties with voluntary delayed release programs. Although many counties offer delayed release processes, few individuals choose to use it, as most prefer to leave immediately. 15 counties have a voluntary delayed release program, and there's 21 counties that do not, and then there's 8 counties that did not have a response as to whether they are opt-in or opt-out for that decision. Again, more than 21 counties opt-out than opt-in of 15 counties. Some large counties like Los Angeles and San Francisco offer the program. Thank you, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have public speakers on this item?
Yes, we have 3 requests to speak in chambers and 3 on Zoom.
Okay, just want to confirm none of those speakers are Reentry Network members. They don't need to sign up for public comment.
There are not names
Okay.
that I
All right,
recognize.
we'll start with them. Let's hear 3 in person, and then you said 3 on Zoom.
Yes, the in-person speakers are Mark Ashford, Jimmy Prado, and Brett Bymester. You can approach the podium.
Good morning. My name is Mark Ashford. I'm the acting chair of the Santa Clara County Lived Experience Advisory Board. I feel it is important to express that this report feels counterproductive. The preparation for today has been rushed and ceremonial rather than collaborative. It is critical that we as board members are included in the decision-making process before decisions are made. We should be involved in determining what data to collect and how to approach these issues from the start. Each of us has a lived experience, bring valuable experience, insight, and solutions to the table, yet we are only asked for our input after time, energy, and money have already been spent on a report that feels disconnected from our lived experience. The data in these reports are not just numbers. They represent people with families, dreams, challenges. These numbers represent human beings who, like all of us, are multifaceted. The ATI work group has spent months working on similar issues nearly 2 years ago and came up with strong, actionable solutions. What is needed now is not more data, but courage to take those steps forward. We may make mistakes along the way, but we need to try. I urge you to ensure that the Lived Experience Advisory Board is involved before decisions are made, not after. Decisions should not be based on assumptions or on what staff believe they know. To engage fully in this type of policy work and to make meaningful recommendations, it requires significant time, energy, and support, almost a full-time commitment from someone like me. Without a college degree, I don't place value in spreadsheet columns. My perspective is shaped by my own journey as a felon re-entering society and a father separated from my family behind prison walls. I am still... Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brett Bymaster. I'm with the Healing Grove Health Center Reentry Program. As somebody with lived experience from late night releases, I can tell you for the 7,500 people that we release late night every year, it is a significant component of recidivism in Santa Clara County. A few months ago, I got a phone call at 5:30 a.m. from the King and Story Starbucks. There was a man there who had been released in the middle of the night. He was still wearing his jail shoes, and he had bled through his shoes, covered in blood, because he had walked from Elmwood to the King and Story on Starbucks Road. He'd been held for 2.5 years without bail at Elmwood until he won his case and was exonerated by a jury of his peers, and then immediately and summarily released into homelessness in the middle of the night without a ride home. This is an issue we have to solve. Turns out there is a creative solution. Healing Grove Health Center and a number of other partners are involved in the Enhanced Care Management Program through CalAIM, and there is considerable funding in that program. There is a population of focus for justice impacted, and that program can provide funds that we can use for things like a ride in a hotel room. The big need is to get a ride and a place to stay until you can get to the reentry center and receive the fantastic services involved there, which includes a 6-night hotel voucher. So there is a solution. There is a way to do it. There is a funding mechanism, but there are some really significant bureaucratic hurdles to overcome that include getting someone on Medi-Cal after release, because we typically terminate people's Medi-Cal while they're in jail, which is really unfortunate. So if we could partner with Santa Clara Family Health Plan, with in-service jails, and with Medi-Cal as a whole to get people from release to Medi-Cal within a month, we have a funding mechanism, a process, and a team that's willing to do this. Healing Grove Health Center is willing to run a demonstration to make that work. So we'd love to partner with you on that.
Good afternoon. My name is Jimmy Prado. I'm a Lived Experience Advisory Board staff member from the South County area, Gilroy. And my thoughts and my comments as well on this issue on post-release is that, you know, those from that live in the South County area, you know, some of those persons, you know, that are being released might not have access to finances, transportation. There's certain barriers, you know, that might be a disservice to them in their transition from being released, you know, going back, you know, to their home in South County area, right? And so, you know, that bus ride, you know, is a challenge, right? You know, if they're able, you know, to get on the bus, right? But there is no bus running at midnight. You know what I mean? And so where do they go, right? You know, there was a slide up there earlier to where, you know, there was a hub right here. right here at the reentry, right? But yet, when a person gets released, if they have no financial monies, to even get a Uber, right, or a taxi, where do they go? What do they do, right? And especially the individuals that live in South County, right? That right there is a big mission, right? So it's kind of like, like if you could put that into consideration, right? That there are people, in the South County area, Morgan Hill, San Martin, Gilroy, right? That do get released, from Elmwood Jail. And so, they're also in need of some type of voucher, right, to help them get them home safe, right? So that way they can get the services that they need, right, with the reentry. Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 Zoom speakers. Our first speaker is Larissa. I'm unmuting you. Larissa, you have 2 minutes to speak. Okay, Larissa, if you can unmute your microphone.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, hi, I'm Larissa Sabala. I'm from the Lived Experience Advisory Board from Santa Clara County. And I heard you share about, high amount of crime that's happening in the community. You shared about different approaches that are working well in another county and also in this county that can support midnight releases. But I also think that you should consider voices of people that have lived experience, such as our board as well, to get some insight from us, to see what works, what doesn't work, what we see, to help support you in approaches that will be best for our community and for our people that are getting released for midnight releases, or what other options can be done.
Okay, our next speaker is iPhone. I am unmuting you. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Yes, I mean, it's really important if we're going to do midnight releases that we give vouchers and we help people get home or find a place to stay. But at the same time, we also need to make sure that we're putting the right people in our jails, right, for the right reasons. Let me tell you, I have a warrant for my arrest right now. And that's because I refused to partake in the concealment of the sexual abuse of my children. I posted this online before you could see it. I mean, the warrant is through Judge Manley's department. And I've been begging him, hey, my kids are being abused. I'm being assaulted. Is there something that you can do? I mean, to not have something that's facilitating this and covering this up and providing incentive? I mean, you can either dismiss the case, can you put me in Clara? Is there something you can do? But he just ignores it. I mean, I just don't understand how, I mean, like, these are the leaders of our community. You guys are all the leaders of our community, and you're facilitating and concealing this sexual abuse and this physical abuse against me. I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm at a loss here that nobody's willing to put a stop to this, and you guys are basically giving immunity and incentive to these people to do all these different things, and it's, I think we really need to change it. We need to put our foot down and our feet down and say, hey, look, we're drawing the line. No sexual abuse of children, no physical abuse, no attempted murder. This has got to stop. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Yesenia. You have been unmuted. Please unmute so that you may begin speaking.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Yesenia Velasquez. I am also a board member for the Lived Experience Advisory Board. I have personal experience being released from jail with nowhere to go, and not a safe place to go to, and just going back to the same thing that I've known how to do for so many things for all my life. So I believe that it's important that we take another approach and look at being able to bring in more programs before being released from jail, and being able to support clients upon their release and having a plan, as well as possibly more transitional housing for women like THUs, because there's very rare or very little of transitional housing places for women, including shelters for women. So as my personal experience, and now that I've overcame that, I, as a woman, it's very unsafe and it's a risk, and it really just leads you back into the same cycle. And to break that cycle, I think we have to take a different approach and address the needs and the cycle that's being just over and over. And thank you for your time.
That was our final public speaker.
Thank you very much.
What about me?
That is Member Wesley Mukayama.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I want to say,
Who am I hearing?
hello
That
to
is
my-
Wesley Mukayama. He was promoted as a panelist as a
Oh,
reentry,
what? I'm so
former
sorry.
reentry member.
Thank you. Go right ahead, Wes. Couldn't tell where the voice was coming from.
I'm coming from Zoom. I couldn't make it in person because I have a broken wrist and I can't drive. But I would like to say, comment about late night releases. I've been on the mental health board for over 30 years, and also been involved in jail releases for many decades. I think the fact that you have a paper transfers in Silicon Valley is unacceptable. When we have the most advanced communication systems and you're using paper, I don't think it's right. And I also, I'll ask the question of the late night presenter. Are those vouchers really given? Because I remember, I'm a chaplain. I've been a chaplain in the jail for 16 years. I had to go through hell and high water to get a taxi for him to go to Maranatha Center. And they accepted him, but I had to do a whole lot of work as a chaplain, and I don't know how accurate those vouchers, taxi vouchers are. And I agree with one of the previous speakers. There's not much transportation on the buses at midnight, and so I think this is a archaic system of late night releases, and I think they should be eliminated and have people released earlier. I just can't understand it, and I think I do say that the mission is good. I think the mission is good, and I hope it works, but I still don't know how effective it is.
Thanks, Wes. The sheriff has his light on, who I guess would be very much like to address the jail management system.
Oh, that's exactly. Well, first, Wes, we miss your presence. Wish you a speedy recovery on your injury to your wrist. No, I just wanted to let you know that we totally agree with you that we have an archaic system. I don't think anybody within the sheriff's office would disagree with that. But on the bright side, we are anticipating the launch of our new jail management system, which will bring us into this modern day as far as utilizing that. And we do believe that will also be an asset in expediting some of the processes that were mentioned in the report. So that is on track, and it is scheduled to launch in September of this year. So.
Great.
That is exciting, and it would be great for this committee, once it's launched, Sheriff, to have a presentation here of how that is going to work. Let me look to other reentry folks for comments before I add my questions. Welcome to all of you. I am not seeing any lights on, and you'll wave at me if I'm missing a light. Is the hand from a former member of reentry? Do you want to come up and sit?
Hi, my name is Julian Del Rio. I'm a reentry specialist with the Good Samaritan Project. And what I'd like to have the board is to consider that leaving from
I'm
Elmwood.
so sorry. I'm going to just interrupt you for a quick minute. I believe for purposes of this conversation, you're a member of the public. What I was asking about was members of the former county reentry network who have been absorbed into this. Were you a member of the reentry network as the county?
I've been part of reentry for 10 years. I'm a case manager.
Supervisor, I think there's a confusion between the department and the network,
I
which
think that is
I
clear.
think you're picking up on as well, yeah.
Yes, so thank you. Yes, you are a member of the reentry department of the county, not the former committee, but since that wasn't clear and clearly you didn't take the opportunity to speak during public comment, I would love to offer you 2 minutes right now and we'll work out the bumps as this goes, please.
Thank you. I just, would like to comment that they should take into consideration when you're releasing somebody at that late night, the nearest bus or light rail is quite a distance. They've got to take a long walk to get there. If you're going towards reentry, you got to go over the freeway to get there. The other way, you got to go towards the Great Mall. It's a long distance. That is time consuming. By the time they can get to reentry or get to the recovery station, it's already late. They're not going to be accepted because they're only allowed a certain amount of time to get there. And with that being said, I believe that should be something that should be taken into consideration when you're doing your evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now looking for lights. Sheriff again? Sheriff and then Aaron O'Brien.
Yeah, I was just going to say to that comment, and I think this is something we would agree as well, is, I mean, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have people being released from jail at between 11 p.m. and 8 in the morning. But the reality is, as mentioned in the report, we have to follow the court's direction, guidelines, and when releases come in, and as Captain Rowland mentioned, there are options which I think we'll discuss. But one of the things I wanted to bring to this group's attention is Riverside Sheriff's Office actually just contracted with Lyft, and I believe it was Lyft, possibly Uber as well, because to the speaker's comments, the tokens are great if they utilize them. The buses, if they're available, but they're not very convenient. So that is something that we would be open to looking into. There's obviously costs associated with that, but I do think there's a value. Transportation has changed over the last decade, or access to transportation, and that might be something that we could make available to individuals that do need to get to Gilroy or parts of the county that are not easily accessible at 2 in the morning. So we're open for that conversation as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, if you don't mind, I just want to direct a question first to the court before I come to you. Can you say a little bit, Judge Emity, about what the circumstances are in which the court would order a daylight release, and what would the impact be if all cases had daytime release conditions?
Let me make one comment and then answer that question. The first is that we are working on an electronic system to deliver minute orders. We have it's called Clerk's Edition. We're working on that now. And so that would be available basically immediately as opposed to the paper system that is currently in place. So that is one thing that we are in the process of. Unless a defendant asks specifically for a daytime release only, they just get released in whatever the system is. But there are people who knowledgeably say, please put down daytime release only, and then it's the unofficial version of what they're doing in San Francisco and LA, which is you can opt to stay in overnight. But other than that, we leave it to the jail to do whatever they do after they get the minute order.
So it sounds like it bounces back and forth. And do we have higher numbers than other jurisdictions because of the paper system, because we don't have the minute notice? What are the real driving factors here?
Sure, there's actually a few, so it's not one single issue. I think, we are a really progressive county, as you saw in the presentation. We do offer bail releases and pretrial efforts in the night, which other counties don't do. So although it looks like they're not doing as many late night releases, we're trying to get people out of custody faster. It's a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation. And we also do the paper through coming to court is physically driven over, right, to the jail. So the paper honestly is a huge issue. I know there's solutions coming, which is going to be very exciting. And from what I understand for staffing, there is very limited staffing as well. I think there's like one person at Elmwood who processes all the releases. So there's a little bit of a staffing issue there too. But the biggest part, I think, is really making our system more electronic to get people out quicker. What you'll see is in some of the counties that do use their electronic systems is if they think someone really is going to be released, they don't bring them back to the facility either. They get released from another location closer to the court. So there's a lot of different pieces. There's a lot of different solutions. I think right now with a lot of the partnerships you'll see, I know that Custody Health uses their code to denote daylight releases for people with mental health needs. We know that Reentry Center has navigators that come in and work. We have their rehabilitation officers, behavioral health in the county, lots of partners who are working hard to have people released safely. If you do ever get a chance to sit in the lobby and watch the releases, you'll see a lot of taxis do come in the evening time. And so I do think, having a method or transportation like the sheriff said, even if temporarily until we kind of get our ducks in a row, could be beneficial. But it is challenging. There are also people who really don't want assistance from anyone, right? They're done with the system and they just want to do their own thing. And so to be respectful of that is important too. Some people are like, I'm released and I'm done with connecting with system partners. So that's a challenge too for some people.
Sure. Thank you. We go to Aaron O'Brien from Community Solutions. Oh, okay. Thank you. Supervisor. Judge? Oh,
I'm
Matt,
sorry.
Sorry.
Is that you?
No, I think it's live.
Just like to contextualize one thing. We're fortunate to be one of the few jurisdictions that has 24/7 risk assessments with judges available around the clock. Not always, but most of the time, defendants are screened within about 2 hours. The alternative you'll see in other communities is people are not screened for days. Sometimes after the arraignment, 4 or 5 days later, the judge will send a referral to pretrial services. I do agree we can improve on how to transition people back into the community.
So if I understood that correctly, are we unique in our practice of accepting, does that extend to accepting bail during extended hours and having pretrial staffing during evening and night hours?
I wouldn't speak to the bail part, but I'm familiar with pretrial services, and we're very quick at giving comprehensive reviews to the judges for them to make decisions. And of course, the law requires that people be released as soon as possible once they're eligible for release.
Got it. Thank you. Supervisor Lee?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very helpful report on this very issue, and I think we certainly can all agree that late night releases, and specifically late night releases onto the streets without transportation to a safe space with nowhere to go, or back to people's cars where they can get transportation or connection to the reentry office when they're opened, is a big problem. And I just want to mention that I have went through that very briefly about 4 months ago now with somebody I know that needs to be released, and the car is very far away, and I actually was just there to pick the individual up and bring back to home. And there's no transportation. And I think that's one issue which I think if we could solve by this Riverside example, as mentioned by the sheriff, of providing the transportation is a huge help. Buses, as we know, is not running 24/7. VTA is on strike, so that's out. But even with that, I mean, we know that even taxi vouchers is only up to 10 miles radius. And knowing the size of our county, 10 miles don't get you very far. If you live in Gilroy, you're way out the 10 miles. So I would definitely would like to come back, if I may, if we're going to make a motion, receive a report, to add that study, to look into that model of having some type of contract. Yes, understood there'll be some resources involved, but the cost of avoiding recidivism or hurt or injury that would happen to either the individual being released or people that they encounter far exceeds that cost. So I think that's something that I would like to see if there's something my colleague here would support. If we go for a motion, A, receive report, B is to look into engaging in some type of a program like Riverside is doing to provide the transportation to help the individual to get to a safe space.
If that's direction to the sheriff, he would need to weigh in on that. And I know you're in the process of evolving the system so that what we're looking at now, hopefully, is a very limited time window in which our late night release statistics will continue to be so disproportionately large.
Yeah, no, I think we can definitely reach out to Riverside, see what's working for them, how they entered into that contract and that MOU. And I do know that they do have restrictions on where, meaning parameters, that the people have to stay within the county. So there are some limitations, because otherwise they could take an Uber to New York, and that would really cost us. But the reality is we can definitely look into that and bring that back to the board.
Great, thank you. And then the other question is regarding the voluntary delay release. That chart was very helpful, and we showed that San Francisco, San Mateo, LA has it, but Alameda doesn't, right? Is this something that you think we should look into implementing as well? I'm asking that with sheriff or our public defender.
There were two observations, and that was one I was going to share, and I think it's consistent with what has already been expressed, which is I think some version of this system actually already exists, and Judge Emity made this point, which is we, as their attorneys, oftentimes identify who we think are particularly vulnerable clients, like our mental health clients, and encourage them, hey, can we request an only daytime release for you? And honestly, it's consistent exactly with the report, which is the vast majority of them simply do not want to agree or use that process. So I'm not sure there is necessarily a structure in terms of increasing the usage of voluntary or delayed release that's actually going to substantially move the needle. I will say, and I'll share just very quickly my anecdotal experience and another point that Dr. Child made, which is the frequency of clients as they exit the jail and generally interactive services with government. There are just people who are, in essence, so distraught about their experience, they just want to walk away. And I'll say that I sat and personally staffed a table outside of the jail at the beginning of COVID and tried to stop clients as they were leaving, who many had a very loose understanding of what was going on and really had little understanding that the world had just shut down and we didn't know when it was going to open back up. And they still would not engage me in conversation because of, I think, this exact same experience. So what I would suggest is, I love this idea of a transportation model, but I would encourage us to factor in how to engage the client to actually even use that and not walk away from an offer of tokens, buses, Uber, because you will have, I think, a volume of people who still will reject it depending on how we deliver that option to them.
I think that's a great point, and to me, a clear solution, if we're not doing it already, is to engage before release. Are we having those conversations as we know somebody is going to be released within the next, whatever it is, 30 days to 24 hours?
No, a great point. And for the community listening, I mean, I think that needs to be distinguished, because when we're talking about these 7,000, well, that's just one portion of the population, but of all the individuals that are released, there's a substantial amount of engagement going on for those that we know are scheduled for release. It's that subsection of the court orders that come in or the bonds that come in within the last 24 hours where we may not have that engagement opportunity. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Child, because it's her and her team that actually do that engagement.
Yeah, that's correct. If it's a scheduled release, we actually have a lot of partners that work really closely with people in custody. There's a lot of communications that have been happening. As a matter of fact, this week we had a great conversation with the judges talking about, how we can all work together to figure out better planned and scheduled releases. And so there's a lot of really great conversations and solutions coming out of that. I think at the end of the day, part of it is the number of people versus the amount of staff that you have. So for example, we have rehabilitation officers, but let's say, for example, for main jail, you have 2.5 rehabilitation officers for all of main jail, which is, and you think about the number of releases, they couldn't possibly do detailed. So they work in collaboration with custody health, with reentry, with pretrial, with probation, whoever they need to work with in order to collaborate on releases. And a lot of our partners are doing great things. We see contracts where people will come and be met out in the lobby to escort them to a location. So there's a lot of solutions coming from a lot of different spaces. I do think we'll see a reduction in late night releases once we kind of move to an electronic format. That's a huge piece, and it's really exciting the court is working on that, because it will dramatically, I think, change and speed up that release process. Not that there probably still won't be late night releases, and not that we still don't need to address safety, but it's a possibility. But when I did talk to San Francisco, not many people take them up on the delayed release.
I just want to mention that through my life, I actually have a few times I actually have to pick up somebody in the late night release, friends and families. And it is very clear that they're crying like, please don't let me spend the night. Please get me out of here. I think there's a lot of that going on. So late night release by itself per se is not a bad thing if they've got transportation, they have somewhere safe to go to, so they could go home and go somewhere to the family and whatnot. So I just want to make that clear. So late night release per se is not a bad thing. The question is when they don't have anything to support them once they are on the streets, and that's where the bad things happen. So I just want to make that clear. Yeah.
Thank you. Javier from Reentry.
So Javier with Director of Office of Diversion and Reentry Services. Also want to uplift the partnership that the Office of the Sheriff has with our faith-based collaborative. We have the 4 faith-based centers have a resource table at Allenwood Lobby Monday through Thursday from 7:30 p.m. to about 9:30, 10 p.m. And so there's a table, and like Acting Public Defender Damon was saying that a lot of folks don't want to talk to any county official, but I think with our faith base, they hire lived experience individuals to work those tables. So having that contact with someone that has gone through that journey. Just looking at the numbers, what they provide at those resource tables at Elmwood, from referrals to behavioral health, bus tokens, clothing, employment assistance. We want to increase the referral to the Missions to Recovery Station as one option. We are in conversation with behavioral health. Horizons, who administers the Missions to Recovery Station, has a van. They're trying to hire someone that they could even drive from Missions to Recovery Station here to Elmwood, pick someone up late night, and then take them to the Missions to Recovery Station to then access services during the day. But we had also looked at extending hours at the Reentry Resource Center a few years ago. We didn't get that many individuals come to the center. But we do have the first Saturday of the month from 8 to 12, we are open. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Johnson.
I apologize for chiming in, but one
This is why we're here.
We've been talking a lot about the transportation component of this for the late night releases, but to the woman that called in, that's my biggest concern is when they don't have anywhere to go. So the transportation piece is valuable, but if they don't have anywhere to be transported to, it's really not that helpful. And I think that's the conversation hopefully we can have again, maybe not today, but what is our solution for those individuals that we can't coordinate or engage and have those late night releases and have nowhere to go? I do think there's a tremendous need for transitional housing, and that's a conversation I'd love to be part of.
Yeah, so to the chair, may I amend my motion to, with addition to the issue of transportation, to add a safe place to go as part of the motion so that we can continue on that discussion.
Sheriff, we're looking to you.
Did I need to concur with that?
Well, we could just boss you
Well, I was just
around without
excited
your
because
concurrence.
I thought Nick was going to volunteer to be that transitional housing, so but
maybe so
no, I
too.
definitely concur.
Yeah, and I imagine that's part of the master plan and thinking about how to use the site. But yes, thanks. Nick, go ahead.
My question is, do we track for those folks who are leaving after 11 and midnight to where they do have a place to go? So is that question asked and we're tracking it? Are they being released into homelessness and do we know that?
Well, again, we do ask that question for individuals that we know.
Yeah.
We know of their scheduled release.
Yeah.
But of those,
I'm thinking of the ones who were
the
released
last,
after.
no,
you
at the
know,
Rita, Captain Roldan, you can correct me, but I believe we do not specifically ask that question for individuals that are being released on just.
No, the question that is asked for those individuals that are released that we are unaware of prior, at a prior time is, do they have transportation? Do they have a place to stay? We ask those questions, and if they do not, then that's when we offer the voucher so that they could get a ride to the recovery center station.
And so what I think I heard and during the report was that the Reentry Resource Center has 6-day vouchers, hotel, motel vouchers. Is that correct? And is there then, that's great when you open at 8 in the morning, but that's not doing anybody any good who's released at 2 in the morning. Yes, they could go to your place and wait until 8 in the morning. That is now being offered, and that may work for our county jail here, but not necessarily Elmwood, which is in Milpitas. So do we have housing vouchers for areas around, or motel vouchers around Milpitas for those folks who are being released at 2 or 3 in the morning out of that location? That would be.
Or do they need to come to the Mission Street Recovery Center
Which is
until
quite the
8,
drive.
then get the voucher?
And can then those vouchers be given out at county jail opposed to not waiting until 8 in the morning at the reentry center? Just a thought.
We could definitely look into the motel vouchers process. That's something that we work with the Office of Supportive Housing. And at the April PSJC meeting, there's going to be some discussion about the intersection between behavioral health and housing. I could certainly ask my colleagues to bring that information into part of that presentation.
Great, thank you. Sylvia?
I only just wanted to double check to make sure it is if we are tracking, and if not, when can we start tracking? So this could be information we could track in the next 30, 60, 90 days. When we're doing releases, do they have a place to go? If not, what the need is. Because right now it has a sense that we have a huge need, which it could be very validated, but it would be much better if we had the actual numbers.
Sure.
And also, if there is no family connection, if there's housing, then identify what that is. That is necessary to us for budget projections on how costly these initiatives would be, but it would also be important about what other housing or what other options already exist in our system that we could leverage. Like, for example, if they're mentioning like a temporary placement somewhere for one night until reentry opens, then that's not going to be as costly as us, having to look for interim housing in the interim. So I think the data, again, is going to be so much better for us to be much more data informed about how broad our need is. And I know I would be preaching to the choir for Dr. Child about that.
Sure, no, I agree with you. Data would be very helpful. I just want to caution you that when people are being released and then you're having a law enforcement officer ask you where you're going is probably not the most inviting thing you know what I mean? I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm just saying we should be cautious that sometimes people will tell us they have a place to go because they might be fearful, oh, you're going to keep me if I'm not, or are you going to be in my bed? So I'm just saying we can definitely explore how we can do that. But I do find when people are released, the amount of information they want to share, which they don't need to share, right? Because they are released, does become a little clouded in that moment because like Supervisor Lee said, it's very emotional in that moment. But we can definitely explore because data is very important for us to make good decisions.
Or you can front load the request and the question at the booking. If upon release, where would you go? Do you have a place to go? Because they will want to share that information earlier rather than later.
Judge Manley, your light's on.
Thank you. I was just going to suggest that we receive a report on the CalAIM program. Engagement, navigating back into the community, and supports, including housing, can all be paid with that federal money, which may disappear. And it would seem to me that it's in our interest to push that very hard right now, because that was the intent of the CalAIM program.
So let me note that at our April meeting, we're going to be holding a study session on the behavioral health services capacity and supportive housing for justice-involved individuals. So you're absolutely right, as always. Judge Manley, and that is a big piece, and there is urgency since we don't know what's happening with that funding. Thank you.
Chairperson Ellenberg, can I just make a comment?
Please do.
So just so you know, we have had a really great working relationship with the CalAIM team and the initiative. They've been working with all the partners. And one thing that I think is really important for everyone to know is that you're only eligible for CalAIM if you have a release date so that we can show that you're 90 days within release. So most of the people who are in custody right now do not have a release date, which makes them ineligible for CalAIM dollars according to state law. So there's a little bit of a timing issue, and that's one of the things that we're all working on with the courts and all the partners. So it is a great funding stream. It's really how do we as a county come around to adjust our systems and our processes to ensure that people could become eligible while they're in custody for that. The rehabilitation officers in custody work with SSA. We receive a list. We go and we file Medi-Cal applications so people have them on file when they do get a release date and they are eligible. But right now, because most people in custody, I think it's something like 90% do not have a release date, they are not, we can't verify they're within a 90-day window. So part of it is timing, but I do agree, the judge has a great point, is to think about strategically how do we create an eligibility opportunity for people in custody.
Great point. Thank you so much. Supervisor Lee?
I do have one last question, I promise. We mentioned there's an issue of only one person doing the release process, and so there's a bit of a bottleneck there. I think, Sheriff, that's under your watch, right? Do you see that resources being provided, number one, to add more folks to do that work would be helpful, number one? Number two is that person connected to reentry already so that reentry knows that this is happening, or is just completely separate?
Can we just clarify, sorry, the one person is processing the paperwork, not doing just all of the release. So there's multiple people involved in the release.
Thank you.
But there's one person who receives the court information and is processing it through CJIC and all the other processes in order to process that paperwork.
And when that process takes place, is there any type of notification to reentry immediately that there's somebody being released?
I don't think so, no.
Aha. So I think that might be the question I want to check in is there any way we could establish some type of a connection with reentry and the release? Because it seems like we know somebody's leaving, but the folks who reentries, more goals to help folks coming out. If there's no connection there, I think that seems to be a very huge gap that shouldn't be that hard to connect. Sheriff, what do you think?
Well, I don't think it's difficult to connect or to even inform them of the services. Again, I think it's the frequency of some of the releases. It's getting to that point where we can engage with them, because a lot of these releases aren't even around it when the rehabilitation officers are, because they're coming in later in the afternoon when that staff has gone home. And then sometimes it's a group of deputies that are processing people at the moment. So yes, the information could probably be disseminated, but to make the direct connection, I just don't know. I'd have to get with staff and talk about that.
Yeah, can we add that onto the motion as something to look into?
Yeah, we can
moving
look
forward?
into
Yeah,
it.
I think, yeah, sorry.
And I can briefly add that because we've been in conversation with Michelle Delacaille, who's leading the CalAIM efforts and the case management efforts, which is a fantastic funding stream, by the way, that is outside the course of the general fund for our county. And she has really tried to ask us questions about how much the public defender or the defense community can predict releases. And there are populations that we can be pretty clear, we know they're going to get released. But I think, as has been referenced, there are many releases that come really day of and with almost no notice. You've gone to a court appearance and a case resolves for credit for time served, which is an incredible incentive for people to settle their cases, and they're going to be out at the end of the day. So there isn't much staging time for, I think, the sheriff's team to do things in those circumstances. So there's really a wide variety of how predictable a release date and time is going to be.
Thank you. We've just about hit our 1 hour mark. Wes Mukiyama, I understand, has his hand up. I'm sorry that I can't see the screen as well, but let's hear from him, and then any final comments, and then we'll wrap up this study session.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. And both of you know that there was a plan for the jail to have a 90-day discharge plan. But and it went from that to nothing. I would tend to think that they should have some kind of discharge plan for maybe 10, 20 days for that late night transportation. I have been part of the reentry commission where Javier is talking about, but they stopped it. They didn't have anybody. And even when they were there, these guys would get out at night when I was there. They just walked past them. They wanted to get out, and I agree with Mr. Silver that that's what they want to do. And so you have to have something before they're actually released of some kind of plan, knowing whether they have a place to go or where they're going and how will they get there. The transportation is key, is very key in this. And the other thing is, I just like to bring up another thing, which we will be talking about next in April, about parolee discharges and how they should be outreached into the prisons. Now, I know you've been focusing on mostly jail releases, but I remember Supervisor Ellenberg, you asked the question to GEO, what do they do? And they told you they have no housing, no transitional housing for parolees. And that to me is unacceptable in Santa Clara County, where so many people go to prison and come out. And I follow quite a few of them while they're in prison and when they get out, and that's the biggest complaint. And that will just increase recidivism more. And we did have one person in the news who was quite violent when he came out. But most parolees, they are critically looked at, and they deserve the parole that they get. But they do need transitional housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other final comments? Erin?
Just a last little bit. Medi-Cal enrollment is retroactive. So literally when they walk out, they are eligible for the CalAIM services. We just need to get them enrolled after the fact. So it may be a better source than we think. Thanks.
My vision is so poor. I'm sorry. I'm really trying to look everywhere. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Judge Loftus and Juliana and Aaron, Celine, Judge Manley, Brandon, I got it, and all of the committee, the former committee members. Thank you very much for returning, for your participation. Our next REN study session will be on November 13th, where we will explore the continuum of services across diversion and reentry systems, including behavioral health department and other services that are funded by AB 109. And again, next month, we will be talking about the behavioral health services capacity and supportive housing for justice-involved youth. We should vote on this item before I close it.
Vice Chairperson Lee?
Aye.
And Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 15 are announcements. Do any of the PSJC members on the dais have any announcements?
I have a very quick announcement. The Public Defender's Office and our community outreach team, I want to just quickly acknowledge Jake Rhodes, who is our community outreach attorney. He'll be moving to a different assignment in April, but they've coordinated in collaboration with many of the people in this room and many CBOs, the first pop-up court. Thank you, Judge Manley. I suspect you may be helping us in South County on I want to get the day right. It's Friday, March 28th, our first resource fair and pop-up court to be hosted in South County. So I actually have hard copy flyers for anyone who might want a hard copy, both in Spanish or in Spanish, English, and Vietnamese. It's posted on the website.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that just recently we collaborated with the Office of the State Public Defender and did a webinar with CSAC on the implementation of new conflict panel performance standards. So this is a statewide effort led by the Office of the State Public Defender to improve the indigent defense services for those who are represented by conflict panel programs across the state. And we've collaborated with OSPD for the past 18 months, and I'm proud to say that our conflicts panel program, IDO, is a model in the state, and a lot of the performance standards were modeled after our program. And this is a program that was created back in 2008 with the leadership of this board and this community. And based on the certain criteria that were applied, now they want those to be modeled across the state. So that's a very good thing for us to be proud of as a county.
Thank you very much. You have an announcement?
Yep. Tomorrow, March 14th, Friday, afternoon at 5:30, we'll be holding our State of the County right here. Same place, same channel. Looking forward to see you all here. And
Be
there'll
there
be
or
great
be
music,
square.
be squared, and we have good food afterwards. Thank you.
All right, item 16 is to adjourn. I'm going to adjourn this meeting until Thursday, April 10th at 10 a.m. Thank you, everybody.
Good to see you, sir. We don't have, of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely.